A shiver runs through the icy winds of the North Sea. Shadows of dragon-headed ships pierce the mist, their warriors chanting tales of gods and glory. Who were these daring seafarers? The Vikings? Fearsome raiders, masterful traders, or misunderstood settlers? Their saga spans blood-soaked battles, cunning conquests, and a thirst for discovery. Stay with us as we unveil the entire history of the Vikings, a story of resilience, ambition, and legend. The Viking Age didn't emerge from a void. It was shaped by centuries of cultural, geographical, and societal evolution. The Norse people, hailing from present-day Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, were descendants of a hardy population that thrived in the challenging climates of the north. Their society revolved around family, loyalty, and survival, deeply intertwined with the Norse pantheon of gods, like Odin, Thor, and Freya, who reflected their values and struggles. By the 8th century, these communities faced overpopulation, limited arable land, and internal power struggles. Such pressures acted as a catalyst, prompting adventurous and resourceful individuals to seek opportunities beyond the fjords. Long ships, a hallmark of Viking ingenuity, became their vessels of exploration and conquest. These ships, with their shallow drafts and unparalleled speed, allowed them to traverse rivers, oceans, and even shallow waters, ensuring their dominion extended far and wide. This chapter of Viking history also illuminates their social hierarchy. At the top sat the Jarls, noble leaders who governed territories and amassed wealth through trade and plunder. Below them were the Carls, or freemen, who worked as farmers, traders, and warriors. At the bottom of the ladder were the thralls, enslaved individuals who performed the hardest labor. While small, this stratified society was united by a shared belief system and a collective yearning for honor. The Norse calendar and their close connection to the natural world also influenced their activities. Harsh winters confined them to their homes, fostering a culture of storytelling and oral tradition. But when spring thawed the ice, they set sail, bringing both fear and admiration wherever they went. This was the stage set for the explosive start of the Viking Age, marked by a raid that sent shockwaves through Europe. June 8th, 793, was a date etched in infamy. A fleet of Viking raiders descended upon Lindisfarne, a holy island off the northeastern coast of England. The attack wasn't just a material plundering, it was a symbolic strike at the heart of Christian Europe. Monasteries, with their gold-laden chalices and defenseless monks, became prime targets, representing both material wealth and spiritual defiance. This raid marked the beginning of an era where Viking longships terrorized European coasts. Over the next few decades, Norse raiders expanded their scope, striking Ireland, Scotland, and France. Yet, their motivations were far more complex than mere pillaging. Many Vikings sought fertile lands to settle, forging communities that blended Norse and local cultures. The creation of the Danelaw in England exemplifies this. Territories where Viking laws, customs, and governance prevailed. Their expansion wasn't solely violent. Viking traders ventured as far as the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic Caliphates, exchanging goods such as furs, amber, and slaves for silks, spices, and silver. These interactions enriched Norse culture and economy, embedding the Vikings firmly in the global trade networks of the medieval world. The adaptability of the Norse people was evident in their ability to navigate foreign environments. Whether establishing settlements in Greenland's icy tundra or raiding Mediterranean ports, the Vikings thrived in extreme and diverse conditions. This period laid the foundation for their reputation as both fearsome warriors and shrewd negotiators. From the rocky cliffs of Iceland to the uncharted lands of North America, the Vikings pushed the boundaries of the known world. Led by the legendary Erik the Red, Norse settlers ventured to Greenland around 982 CE. braving inhospitable landscapes to establish farms and communities. Erik's son, Leif Erikson, would later journey westward, reaching a land he called Vinland, modern-day Newfoundland, Canada. This made the Vikings the first Europeans to set foot in North America, centuries before Columbus. Their explorations weren't limited to the Atlantic. In the east, the Russ, Viking traders and warriors, navigated the vast rivers of Eastern Europe. They established lucrative trade routes connecting the Baltic to the Black Sea, facilitating exchanges with the Byzantine Empire. This eastern expansion also contributed to the foundation of Kievan Rus, a political entity that became a cornerstone of Slavic history. The Vikings' voyages showcased their unparalleled seafaring skills. Their longships, equipped with both sails and oars, were engineering marvels capable of enduring turbulent seas and traversing narrow rivers. This mobility allowed them to raid, trade, and explore with unmatched efficiency. While exploration brought wealth and fame, it also exposed the Vikings to new ideas and challenges. Encounters with foreign cultures and religions began to influence Norse society, sowing the seeds for transformations that would mark the twilight of the Viking Age. By the late 9th and early 10th centuries, the Vikings were not merely raiders. They had evolved into formidable settlers, rulers, and statesmen, leaving a legacy that reshaped Europe. Leaders such as Harald Fairhair in Norway and Gorm the Old in Denmark consolidated their power, laying the groundwork for unified Scandinavian kingdoms. These rulers were inspired not just by conquest, but by the need for stability to sustain their growing influence. The Viking expansions weren't just limited to raids. The rise of the Danelaw in England demonstrated the Vikings' shift from destructive invaders to architects of a new world. Their towns and cities, such as Jorvik, York, became thriving hubs of commerce and culture, integrating Viking and Anglo-Saxon elements into a vibrant, unique civilization. The Normans in France, descendants of Viking chieftains like Rollo, became an influential power in Western Europe. Rollo's Duchy of Normandy would forever change the political landscape, culminating in the Norman conquest of England by his great-great-grandson, William the Conqueror. In the east, the Varangian Guard, comprised of elite Viking mercenaries, became an indispensable force in the Byzantine Empire. They were not only fierce warriors, but symbols of the Vikings' integration into foreign courts, where they served as both protectors and diplomats. The Byzantines admired them for their loyalty and battle-hardened strength, adding to the Vikings' legend as formidable international players. Yet, even as the Vikings reached their zenith, their contact with Christian Europe began to reshape their society. Intermarriage, trade, and religious conversions planted the seeds for the eventual integration of Norse culture into a broader European framework. This transformation would mark the beginning of the end for the traditional Viking way of life. The decline of the Viking Age was a gradual but inevitable process, shaped by internal transformation and external resistance. As Christianity spread through Scandinavia, the pagan roots of Viking society were increasingly eroded. King Harald Bluetooth's conversion in the 10th century symbolized a shift in priorities from raiding to diplomacy and internal governance. Christian monarchs replaced Norse paganism with the Church, which introduced new laws, practices, and cultural norms that significantly altered Viking society. External resistance also grew. The fortified towns, professional armies, and strategic alliances of European kingdoms turned the tide against the once feared Viking raids. King Alfred the Great's military reforms in England, including the establishment of a navy and fortified burhs, ultimately led to victories over Viking invaders, most notably at the Battle of Edington in 878. This marked a significant victory for the Anglo-Saxons and set the stage for the eventual unification of England under King Ethelstan in 927. Internally, the Viking societies were fractured. As the Scandinavian kingdoms expanded, rivalries and conflicts among Viking leaders became more pronounced. This internal strife weakened their ability to maintain a united front. The rise of feudalism in Europe further reduced the Vikings' capacity to engage in large-scale raids. as they integrated into European power structures instead of seeking autonomous rule. By the 11th century, Viking expansion reached its apex and began to fade, symbolized by the death of King Harald Hardrada at the Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066. The defeat of his forces by the Saxons, led by Harold Godwinson, is often viewed as the symbolic end of the Viking Age. Though Viking raids diminished, their cultural and genetic legacy persisted across the territories they once ruled, particularly in England, Normandy, and Russia. Despite their decline, the Vikings' influence on European culture, governance, and warfare laid the groundwork for many of the political and cultural shifts in the centuries to come. The Viking Age may have ended, but its legacy endures in profound ways. The Norse left an indelible mark on the political and cultural landscape of Europe. The Vikings' exploration, settlement, and governance paved the way for the creation of several modern nations. For instance, the Norsemen's involvement in the founding of Kievan Rus led to the eventual formation of Russia, and their establishment of Normandy changed the course of European history, leading to the Norman conquest of England in 1066. The Norse myths and sagas, preserved in texts like the Poetic Edda, continue to capture the imagination of people worldwide. Their tales of gods, heroes, and epic journeys not only preserved their cultural identity, but also influenced modern literature, film, and art. Iconic characters like Thor, Loki, and Odin, once central to Viking religion, have become global symbols, transcending time and culture. These stories have been adapted and reimagined in countless ways, further cementing the Vikings' cultural footprint. Archaeological discoveries such as the Oseberg ship burial in Norway and the settlement at Lance aux Meadows in Newfoundland shed light on Viking innovation and their unparalleled maritime expertise. These sites reveal the Vikings not as mere raiders, but as skilled craftsmen, explorers, and settlers who mastered shipbuilding, navigation, and trade. Their longships, with their distinct dragon-headed prows, were technological marvels, enabling them to travel vast distances across oceans and rivers. The Vikings' influence can also be seen in their enduring linguistic contributions. Many English words, including berserk, law, and sky, have roots in Old Norse, and place names such as Thorsmind or Scotland reflect Viking heritage. Through trade, conquest, and cultural exchange, the Vikings left a lasting imprint on Europe that still resonates today. As we look at modern Scandinavia, we see a region that has preserved much of its Viking heritage, from its art and literature to its social values of resilience and independence. In the end, the Vikings' legacy is one of adaptability, resilience, and innovation. They were explorers, conquerors, merchants, and storytellers, whose influence spread far beyond the realms of battle. They challenged the known world, forging their place in history through their bold voyages, their enduring myths, and their undeniable impact on the cultures they touched. This enduring legacy continues to inspire and fascinate, proving that the Viking spirit is far from forgotten. Thank you for joining us on this voyage through the entire history of the Vikings. If you enjoyed this journey, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the epic tales of history.